What is Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a mental illness in which a person creates a factitious disorder imposed on another, usually a child or a relative in their care. They are typically seeking sympathy, charity or attention from others, and will stop at nothing to get it. Here are 5 seriously disturbed mothers who deliberately sickened their own children. Number 1. Claudine, D.D. Blanchard. Claudine Blanchard was the mother of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. When Gypsy was 3 months old, her mother took her to hospital for extensive monitoring, claiming her daughter suffered with sleep apnea. The hospital found there to be nothing wrong. However, D.D. seemed convinced that there was a wide range of health issues which attributed to an unspecified chronological disorder. When Gypsy Rose was 7 or 8, she had a minor motorcycle accident and scraped her knee. From that day forward, Gypsy was forced to use a wheelchair, even though she was healthy enough to walk by herself. She was taken out of school and homeschooled by her mother. They lived in public housing and received public assistance to pay their bills. They spent most of their time visiting various specialists, seeking treatment for the fake ailments that D.D. claimed her daughter was suffering from, which also included hearing and vision problems and seizures. Sometime in 2012, Gypsy met a boy online called Nicholas Scott Jones. They discussed eloping together to get away from her controlling mother. When her mother found out about this, she destroyed her laptop and phone and forbid her to see him. In 2015, Gypsy and Nicholas arranged for him to murder D.D. while she was asleep. He stabbed her several times, while Gypsy Rose hid in the bathroom. Gypsy was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Nicholas was sentenced to life in prison. Number 2. Lacey Spears. Lacey Spears was lonely as a single mother, and desperate for attention. She constantly posted on social media about her son, Garnett's health struggles. She even started a blog, documenting her struggle to find a cure for whatever illness plagued him. She allegedly once told a neighbor that her son was the result of being raped by her own father, and told the real father that Garnett wasn't his child, and threatened him to stay away. She force-fed Garnett through a feeding tube, and made him sick by poisoning him with table salt throughout his infancy. In 2014, Garnett was admitted to hospital for treatment where his condition improved. When the doctors told Lacey that her son was well enough to go home, she took him into the hospital toilet, and poisoned him again. Her son died shortly after as a result. He was just 5 years old. Lacey Spears was sentenced to 20 years in prison for manslaughter. Number 3. Blanca Montano. In 2011, police arrested 21-year-old mother, Blanca Montano, for child abuse after her infant daughter was diagnosed with 9 different rare infections. Doctors treating the child suspected Blanca of having Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which caused her to poison her child intentionally to get attention. Blanca took her 2 children to hospital, with flu-like symptoms, where the children were diagnosed and treated for an infection. Blanca's son was soon released, but her daughter got sicker and sicker. She was eventually diagnosed with 9 separate, rare infections over the course of her hospital stay. According to a statement from the police department, hospital staff noticed that the child's condition worsened every time she was left alone with her mother. They began to suspect she was poisoning the child and reported it to the police. After an investigation, the police learned that Blanca was indeed responsible for her daughter's illness. Once Blanca was barred from seeing her daughter, her condition improved significantly. Police arrested Blanca and charged her with child abuse. Number 4. Mary Beth Tinning. 9 children died under the care of Mary Beth over the period of 14 years. The cause of deaths for the first 8 children were initially thought to be genetic. Even when their adopted 6th child, Michael died in 1981. Authorities failed to open an investigation into his death. When Mary Beth's ninth child died of being smothered to death, the Tinnings were finally suspected of murder. The cause of the children's deaths were listed diversely, between natural, undetermined, or of sudden, infant death syndrome. 6 autopsies were carried out after the death of the ninth child, but they did not show any signs of abuse. Prosecutors only had enough evidence to charge Mary Beth with the murder of one child. And in 1987, she was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. Number 5. Kayleen Bowen Wright. Kayleen Bowen Wright manipulated healthcare professionals into performing unnecessary medical procedures on her son, Christopher, over a period of 8 years. Christopher's father, Ryan Crawford, tried to convince family court judges for years that Kayleen had been inventing his illnesses. But the judge did not believe him. Ryan had to gather medical records from various doctors and hospitals to try and prove that his son was in fact a perfectly healthy child. Eventually, Ryan reached out to another victim of Munchausen Syndrome by Proxy, who helped him to get the legal advice he needed. Kayleen was eventually charged and sentenced to 6 years in prison.